Welcome to the first Meadowbrook Memories video conversation. This week marks 2 complete years since we presented our first podcast, and this video is our special way of marking the occasion. We sincerely appreciate your enthusiasm over the years, and we are delighted you are joining us aboard the memory train. It gives me great pleasure to welcome and thank our more than 100 guests and thousands of viewers who have contributed to making our open and memorable conversation such a resounding success. To friends and supporters who have not yet accepted our invitation to share your memories, even if you only spent a single term at the school, we should remind you that our team at Meadowbrook Memories is waiting on your email and look forward to your company in future podcasts. Please address your willingness to speak your truth to meadowbrookmemories@gmail.com, and we will set a date for you to join in a conversation which I'm confident you will enjoy. I must give special thanks to all my co-hosts and our many guests. They have, by their diligent collaboration, made it possible to create a program which is thoroughly enjoyed by the Meadowbrook alumni, present students, and the school administration, friends, and well-wishers. This special video podcast was initiated by the Canadian chapter of Meadowbrook alum. Wayne Swabe reached out to me and said, "Jelly, our former principal, 94-year-old Mr. Bogle, wants to personally meet you and thank you for our Meadowbrook Memories podcast." I thought about it for a while and decided that 2 days in the Canadian cold would be a small sacrifice, and it was an honor to finally meet Mr. Bogle personally. I also had the opportunity to meet the new president of the Canadian alum, MJ Mara Jo Chung Lewis, who along with her husband Dane took care of all the arrangements to ensure the memorialized meeting on Saturday evening of January 13, 2024 with Mr. Bogle was smoothly executed and efficiently recorded. We hope you will enjoy watching and listening to this future presentation. Thank you. 13th, I know that because tomorrow is my daughter's birthday, January 14th, and we'll talk about that on the way here. And welcome to another, and not just another, this is our first recorded video conversation of Meadowbrook Memories. And I have a very special guest here today. First, I do have a course this week going chit chat with a couple of, one old student, one former teacher, and 2 former people. I'm going to identify them. As I said, this is off the cuff. I didn't prepare a script. And this recording is special to me because, let me give a background. Wayne Swabe, who is the president of the Canadian chapter, reached out to me and said, "Mr. Bogle wants to see your land." So I live in Orlando, and Mr. Bogle said, this recording is being done in Toronto in -degrees temperature, and I'm coming from a toasty 70 degrees in Orlando. And Wayne said, "Mr. Bogle wants to see you." I said, okay, yeah. It's so that when I set the date to come here in January, the weekend in January here, Wayne wasn't here, right? But Wayne put me in the good hands of the current chapter of the Meadowbrook Canadian alum, MJ. And what's her last name again? I don't remember her last name. What's her last name?
Lewis.
MJ Lewis. Mara J. Lewis. Right? I don't know her. She's graduated in Meadowbrook in 2008, and she excellently took over from Wayne and made this possible, coordinated this. And unfortunately, she is also upset because she's down with the weather. But her husband, Dane, kindly consented, and he's here in the background helping me make sure this works. So I have to give that up front, that Wayne, MJ, made this possible, that I'm here today. And the people joining us today, you see them on camera, you might not recognize them. On the left of the screen, I don't know how the screen works, is Mr. Donald Bogle, our former principal from 1963 to 67. His wife, Mrs. Bogle, what's the first name? Christine Bogle, who was at Meadowbrook at the same time, 1963 to 1967. Beside Mrs. Bogle is Mrs. Valerie Nelson, my most favorite Spanish teacher, even though I didn't know Spanish. And beside her, she's my friend for years. He went to Meadowbrook at the same time as me. And he picked me up this evening and carried me over here, Martin Murdage. And all of this would not be without any of these people here. So I'm grateful that, and Meadowbrook Memories It is just a conversation. This is our first recorded conversation. I have a special gift to give Mr. Bogle. He doesn't know that yet. At the end of the conversation here, because I work hard. Other students, I let me put that together. But when you get towards the end of this, we don't know how long it's going to take. We're going to talk and talk until we decide, say, we don't have to talk anymore. Right?
Right.
So, I'm glad everybody's here. Mr. Bogle, I will start with you. Introduce yourself first, and then Mrs. Barbara? Christine, sorry, let me get that right. Mrs. Bogle. I won't say Mrs. Bogle. That is easier for me. I'm more respectful. Oh. So go ahead, Mr. Bogle.
Yep. Well, as you've heard, I've been introduced by Glaister, or Mr. Prince, as one of the first headmasters of our school, or your school, Meadowbrook. I was there, as he told you, for nearly 5 years, from 1962 to 1967, and I came to the school as really the 5th principal, because although the school had only had a very short life at that point, in fact, 4 years of existence, I was their 5th headmaster, which means that the 4 previous headmasters only lasted for 1 year.
Or less, yes.
So you can imagine how I felt when I came in as headmaster. I was a little concerned for my position.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, was happy to have been appointed as headmaster, and I could say more about that if they would like me to say my feelings about taking on the job as headmaster.
Yeah, we'll get into that, Mr. Bogle. Let everybody else introduce themselves. I'll go around the table. Mrs. Bogle, introduce yourself.
I was the wife, a very young wife of Don Bogle, and of course, in those days, we always went where our husbands went.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at Monroe, of course, and Hampton, and Don was second master at Monroe. And but it was a challenge, and of course, when you're young, you rise to challenges, I find.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was. I had mixed feelings, of course, as always. When you move and when you're happy in a position, and but that's enough.
Okay.
Are you glad, Mrs. Nelson? Introduce yourself.
Well, I am Valerie Nelson, and I taught at Meadowbrook for 10 years, 1975 to 1985. I was here in Toronto. I had just finished a stint at St. Catherine High School in Spanish Town, and received a phone call from Mr. Thorpe looking for an English teacher. And in 2 seconds, I said yes, and I was back in Jamaica, and I stayed at Meadowbrook, as I said, for 10 years, teaching Spanish and English. And you, Glaister, were one of my pupils.
Oh, I remember that, yes. There's a special story about a pen, but you have to go back to my podcast. I've spoken about that. We might get into that today, but yeah. And Martin, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
So, I'm Martin Meredith. I started Meadowbrook 1979 to 1981, so I was just there for 4th form and 5th form.
Okay, nice.
Very good.
And I will do it because I asked Mr. Bogle a question before, and Mrs. Nelson. I'm going to ask Mrs. Bogle a question. My favorite first question, Mr. Bogle. Your question has already been answered. So I will ask Mrs. Bogle to start. Did you choose Meadowbrook, or Meadowbrook chose you?
As I said before, because Don was appointed headmaster, I went with my husband.
It was not choice then for you. Meadowbrook chose you then, or Don tried?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And I will get back to you on that, Mr. Bogle, why you chose the job at the time. But let me ask Martin the question. Did you choose Meadowbrook, or Meadowbrook chose you?
I think in a sense, I choose Meadowbrook. I guess I wanted to play soccer for Meadowbrook, so I went to Meadowbrook and played the Manor Cup team.
Okay, nice. All right, good to get that out of the way. So, Mr. Bogle, so you took the job, and that's a good question I want to start with. You were 5 principal in 4 years. Why did you decide to take that job? If you realize you were walking into a minefield then? If that's
Yes, well, I never really, I didn't know a thing about Meadowbrook when I received a phone call or invitation from the chairman of the trust, the Reverend Henry Ward, when he invited me to appear at a board meeting as I was being considered along with a couple of other candidates for the job of headmaster. Well, it's normal in working that one hopes for promotion as one goes along, but it was always my objective that for the career that I had chosen to be a school teacher, and a meaningful one, that eventually I would end up as principal of a high school. So naturally I responded with alacrity to the invitation to appear at that meeting. I did some homework before I got there, and I found out a lot about the background of the trust members. Reverend Henry Ward, who, his name I treat with the greatest respect, and of course Mrs. Madge Saunders, Reverend Madge Saunders, who was our minister in the Presbyterian Church. Well, I went to the board meeting, and I was terribly impressed with Mr. Ward and the other board members, and I could see that the ideals which he championed were the ones that were my ideals as well, and that I would get on very well in that environment. Of course, I realized I was taking on a young school with basic facilities, but that in itself was a challenge. So when I was offered the job, I had no hesitation in accepting it.
And if you remember, and this is all about memories. This is not about fact checking or nothing. How many students were at the school at the time, from your memory?
Certainly there was considerably less than 200.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, between 100 and 200 then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number, I can't remember that, but it was very small population.
Yeah. And you, Mrs. Bogle, do you remember? I know you understand yourself, because Mr. Bogle told me you were a member of the Jamaica field hockey team. You played field hockey, and you were a sports mistress when you started Meadowbrook.
Yes.
But do you remember how many students it was from your memory?
From my memory, I would say about the same that you mentioned.
Between 100 and 200.
Yes.
I know we could be wrong, but
that's what Mr. Bogle, that's why I started the program. You see, this is about Meadowbrook memories, your memories, Mrs. Nelson's memory, Mrs. Bogle, and Martin's memory. I'm not here to check anybody's memory. It's just to have the conversation and what you remember. It might be different. And anybody come on and wants anything else, that's fine. This is all open to everybody. So yeah, that's from your memory. But talk about your sports mistress days. What
my sports mistress days. Yes. Well, of course, my main sports were netball and hockey, field hockey, not ice hockey. Field hockey.
Field hockey, right.
And unfortunately, there was not the space at Meadowbrook for field hockey. So I concentrated mostly on netball. And I don't know if you know that now Jamaica ranks 4th in the netball world.
I didn't know that. Really? Yeah. Then Australia, New Zealand, and who?
Yes, Australia, Australia,
England. Okay,
England, yeah.
Well, I didn't realize that. I knew we were in the top 10. I didn't realize we were right up there. Yeah.
It may be a Meadowbrook student.
Well, I was trying to find if I could see that.
So you thought hockey? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I didn't teach hockey there. It was mostly netball.
Oh, I got you. But you played hockey, but there was no facility. Yeah, yeah.
No, it wasn't Hampton.
Yeah.
But yes,
Sports program.
the sports program,
Yeah.
yeah, the sports program at Meadowbrook. Because it was a small school, I got to know the girls very well, and they enjoyed having someone looking after their sports program.
Yeah.
And but the netball in 1963, the world that they had a world championship of netballers, and the English team came to Jamaica, and I felt that it would be good for the girls at Meadowbrook if they met a netballer, right, to give them some oomph.
Yes, a real netballer, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And this girl agreed to come and talk to them.
Oh,
And then, of course, they really enjoyed hearing about what the possibilities
yeah,
of being part of the netball world.
yeah, yeah.
And John will tell you more about the situation with the netball court.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But do you remember the name of that English player who came?
No, I don't.
Yes, Bob memory. But you remember the English team, that's something that I didn't know at all. So you orchestrated that to get her there.
Yes,
So that's how you got in touch with her, I'm curious.
well, because there was a netball association in Jamaica at the time. I must have gone through one of the people there
Yeah.
and asked if she could come and talk.
Okay.
What?
You knew the president well, actually.
The president of yeah.
Anyway, I did a lot of things that I felt was good for Meadowbrook. And having someone actually in that world
Yeah.
really inspired them.
Yeah. So was there a sports program when you started Meadowbrook in terms of for the girls?
Sorry?
Was there a sports program there before? Did anybody play netball before you started?
Yes, they did. They did on a terrible court. I don't know how they did it. But, and that is what Don will tell you about.
You talk to us about that, Mr. Bogle. What should Mrs. Bogle talk about the courts?
Well, I mean, it's part of the shortage and lack of facilities which schools had at that time, which we will go into some of the other facilities. But the actual netball court on which they were playing games was really disgraceful. So one of my first objectives was to raise funds to have a proper netball court. And I had one or two friends in business, and I tackled them, and and went after them, and eventually persuaded this chap who knew a very rich Jamaican businessman to provide the money and the know-how. And as a result, Meadowbrook got a fantastic tennis.
Netball, yeah, because that's one of the netball and the tennis court was. Right.
Double duty.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was there before that, Mr. Bogle, if you don't mind me asking?
Just dirt? It was just really amazingly. There was no grass could grow on it. It was just well looked after. Dirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't know at all, Mr. Bogle. I didn't know that. Fantastic.
And of course, that immediately brought about a big improvement in the quality of the play. And the girls, they became far more excited.
Of course, I can see that.
And Meadowbrook began putting themselves very well in inter-school competition during those years.
Yeah. No, you said that, and I remember my sister, she started Meadowbrook in 1966. Had her tennis racket. I know I say why, because there was a tennis court at Meadowbrook. She had her tennis racket, right? And I didn't know how the history behind the tennis court and the netball court. I didn't know that at all. So, yeah.
But I must interject here, because when they decided where they were going to put the tennis court come netball. It meant getting rid of that tree.
Oh. And I went to hold up the picture, Mrs. Nelson. Hold it up close to the camera, yeah. And I went show it. I went post it on the thing. I went take pictures of that, yeah. That tree. So why was that tree a problem, Mrs. Bogle?
Because that's where people met.
Congregate. Oh, I got you.
And they were very upset when we said,
you cut down the tree.
They were taking up space on that court.
Yeah.
There's a lot of leaves.
Martin, yeah. Oh, because this is just across from the tree store building. No one can see why people could say, oh, we're not taking our shade.
Where the tennis and the netball court was it alongside the library?
Yes, it's right in front.
It also had to be. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, you have to. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating information.
Yes.
But Mrs. Nelson, let me ask you a question. And your podcast, I don't remember what number it is, but I will make sure I put it in the description box that people can listen to your podcast. When you came to Meadowbrook, did you have any idea that you'd end up with a conversation like this 50 years later?
Unequivocally, no. No. And I was saying earlier, Meadowbrook is the school where I taught the longest. I have taught in many schools, but not for 10 years. I have been a vice principal, I've been a principal, but not for 10 years. So Meadowbrook is special in my professional career. But no, I never thought this would happen.
No, neither did I. When I started this conversation, I didn't realize that at all. So Martin, when you came to Meadowbrook in 1979, what do you remember most about the first time you came? Have you ever been to the campus before?
No, never been.
So what was the memory like when you came there?
It was refreshing in a sense. Right, so it was refreshing. Most of the guys that I was going to play Manic Cup with was in my class. So it was easy to bond that way. So I think that was the one thing that stand out most at that moment.
That's the people them around you more than the campus itself.
Right. I mean, we are probably half of the Manic Cup team in
your class. Okay. Yeah.
If I could just interject, I think there's been a discussion recently about students moving from one school to the other to play sports.
Yeah.
But I never associated with this at Meadowbrook in 1979.
Yeah.
You went to Meadowbrook to play soccer.
Right.
I never thought
Let me give you the history.
I never, clearly.
Yeah, when you need to be Red Martin.
No, I was going to say too that I think when I came, there was at least one former player who left Meadowbrook for another school too.
So it was happening way back then.
It started happening. I went in when I think it first started happening, 74 or 75. And Mr. Bogle can attest to this because before Meadowbrook didn't bring nobody into the school just to play sports. That wasn't something that but guess what happened? In the early 70s, all the other schools then started doing that. They were growing and recruit players from the other schools, either the secondary schools at the time, and bring them just to play. So Meadowbrook became very uncompetitive. They would have been uncompetitive because all the sports team, all of the schools, I can't name them, KC, Calabar, they would have bring in a few players and sometimes lots of players who didn't start the school from first round like I did. Right, so Meadowbrook was playing then. That's why they used to call Meadowbrook the love school. Will I get pure love? 6 love, 7 love. Right? So Meadowbrook, when Mr. Taub was in charge, it looked like, Meadowbrook took a stand and decided that we have to start. And they strategically, they didn't blanket to do it because when we won Sunlight in 1982, most of the students started Meadowbrook in first form.
Yeah.
But quite a few came in. So I'm saying to you, and afterwards it was like a blend, a mix. Meadowbrook never had a team then, during the time we were winning, where it was like exclusively. I don't want to say imported in the wrong way, Martin, who didn't start first form. Let me say that. But let me ask you, Mr. Bogle, what you have any comment on that? When you were there at the time, How did other schools compete? Were you aware that they were doing that?
At that stage, no, I wasn't aware, and I don't think it was very common then to bring in outsiders with known ability and little aptitude for education.
Right,
To
right,
be part of the schools.
right.
And in fact, there are some schools, of course, today are notorious for that. Whereas I think even today, Meadowbrook would have difficulty in
In doing that, yeah.
attracting really top sportsmen.
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they'd have to actually pay to get these, pay off their parents, because I understand that other schools like KC, JC, St. George's, they pay their family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's almost like, and they do it here, in the colleges here.
I think this is where it started.
Yeah, you can see it. It's like,
Over there.
most of those teams, the college players, they're there, and you know, they say they don't get paid. You know, so that they're benefiting under the table from it. Something, so that's a different conversation altogether. It is like, in my mind, it's like you should have a separate competition for that. It's not a fair thing.
Professional.
You go to school to learn mostly, and if you have people or students who come in and can play, that's a fair competition. But in other sense, Meadowbrook found that out, that we couldn't compete. You were saying something, Mrs.
I'm
Bogle?
still waiting for my
Sorry.
check, by the way.
What's
The important thing, though, before we leave that subject, is that the thought of bringing in someone because of his sporting ability alone did not cross my mind, and I would not have entertained it.
No, but you are from a different era, Mr. Bogle.
I know that.
Yeah, right. No, I understand. No, I'm not criticizing either, and I'm just saying the reality. I don't like it, Mr. Bogle. I'm on the same side with you. I don't like the idea where you just go to school just to play. I do have a problem if a student have a little ability and he want to come to the school and he have a little sporting ability, a little blend, which is what I had, right? But we just come to the school just exclusively for that, and a lot of school, that was the precedent that Meadowbrook was competed with in the 70s. That is without
Very
doubt.
difficult. So when Meadowbrook achieved those cups, it was a wonderful achievement.
It was, Mr. Well, that's why I started talking about it, because I realized it was, I haven't done it since. So, but that's why I started talking about. But you had something to say, Mrs. You were about to say something about that. Okay. But Mrs. Nelson asked Martin a good question. What school did you come from to come to Meadowbrook? Now we're talking about moving schools.
So when I leave, before coming to Meadowbrook, right, my parents sent me to a trade school.
Okay.
Right.
Which trade school was that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember the name? Okay, all right, no problem.
But it was to learn a trade, as it were.
Yeah.
And then I decided that, when the old topic came up to represent Meadowbrook came up, I decided that I was going to go that route.
Yeah.
You know.
So how did you get the connection? We spoke at Meadowbrook that got you.
Well, I guess it's someone that's, so I usually play soccer at for the short.
Shortwood, yeah, in a year where you live, right?
And there was a lot of connection
Yeah.
there, so they just told me about it, and I went down, and
Yeah. You came to Meadowbrook before Piggy?
yes.
Okay, because Piggy was from Charlotte. And Piggy was the vice captain of my team, no longer here, but yeah. That's why I'm asking Martin about Piggy, so yeah. But we were behind the
year before.
Yeah, before Piggy, yeah. Piggy was, so Piggy was another person who came. He came from Calabar. And it's not just like from secondary schools and I moved. And after a while, what the school sporting body, ISA, decided to do was, you can't transfer. It's like there's a wait period.
Yes.
You can't transfer the same year
Yes.
and start playing. It's like you have to transfer, I think I don't know if it's a 1 year or 2
I
year.
think it was a
1 year at a time. I don't know. And that is fair. It's like, trust me, but that's just my opinion. It's an unfair thing to put certain. And the girls, them are doing it now. Girls' school doing it now. It's like they go around and they recruit. And they're doing it. It's almost like they're going into primary schools now and recruiting.
That early.
What I'm saying, the ability of the student.
And that's particularly true in track and field, actually,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
the standards
that's
are
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. And there's a plus and a minus to it, but yeah, it is.
But who is doing the recruiting? The individual schools or the Ministry of Sports, or who is doing the recruiting?
In my mind, Mr. Nelson will be doing the recruiting. And it's almost like you have scouts, what they have here. People that go around and probably work for certain schools are just say, I know this person who can run, you know. So probably people, and maybe the school have the particular scouts, and I don't know it work, you know. This is just off the cuff comment, and it's almost, think about work here. This is a business here, you know. People go to a big college here, at University of Alabama or Michigan, who won the championship recently, and them have people all around the country looking for people and looking for at a young age. I said this person, and I started priming them, got visiting the parents, buying lunch for the parents, buying SUV for the parents, Martin. So you entitled for your SUV too.
Big check, right?
Yeah. No. So. But
it'd be great if they recruited, young people that are ready to become teachers.
Yeah, but they say that's the thing with the reality of life, sports. Sports run in a sense, and I don't know why. Sports run the media, So in any university here, even here, sports bring in the most money.
Yes,
not just sports, but male sports.
Right.
Male sports.
Well, the female sports are
Well,
good in there.
Well, that's it. But you're right, Mr. Nelson. And I don't know how. My theory is sports, male sports, is a substitute for war. And maybe it's almost like you have to get men competitive, and people like seeing that. Not just men alone. Both male and female like to see men go at it at each other. And that is why the pay and the circumference. Maybe it's in a human nature. I don't know, Mrs. Nelson. I don't know. But it's an interesting discussion where, and that's what Meadowbrook was behind at the time. So, yeah. But it's fascinating, though, Mr. Bogle, that you put that netball court. I didn't remember talking to you about that at the early, when you spoke earlier in your conversation. I'll make sure your conversation in the notes that people can go listen to your conversation. So, is there anything? Yeah, go ahead, Mrs. Bogle.
Well, with regard to the netball, one of the students, one of the male students said how good it was to have that netball team. And they were playing against all the big schools eventually. And it made them happy that the girls were doing well.
Yeah, a male student said that, Mrs. Bogle?
Yes.
Is a male student said that? There's an ulterior motive to that.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogle, I love the netball, but not for the netball.
Well, we used to like the football team. Yes.
The boys would like to see that the boys came to watch the netball, but trust me, I used to watch the netball program full every time with boys watching. And it wasn't necessarily netball. They like the girls short skirt.
Well, that's very reason.
What this old
go ahead, Mr. Bogle, yeah. And this is the whistle boy.
netball. I hasten to add that Meadowbrook also established a great netball tradition. And here I would like to recognize and salute the efforts of your dear wife, Mrs. Bogle, who established netball at Meadowbrook High School and raised the quality of the game there. It was so high that established schools feared playing Meadowbrook, and so on and so forth.
Yes, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's,
And you know that, Mr. Bogle?
that was written by
Jarrett.
Mike Jarrett.
And what year was he at school, did he say?
Yeah, he did.
Well, he said he was 62 at this.
I know his name, but I just don't know exactly. Yeah.
I'll come around.
Yeah. But that's excellent. That's good. So you, in a sense, Mr. Bogle built the court and Mrs. Bogle set the foundation for the great tradition Meadowbrook have now in netball.
Yeah.
And gave me great pleasure, Mrs. Bogle. I used to love watching netball.
Good sport.
Can you imagine trying to play field hockey, though, on that field that they had at Meadowbrook?
No, the field.
It couldn't be done.
I feel like you need that. And the level surface. Yeah.
It was a pity, but
But the balls were so hard.
Yes.
And they because of the hard grind, they used to rise them.
Yeah. Plus, netball is a cheaper sport to play. Or
Right.
11 sticks.
And I'm much bigger field, so much more equipment needed for. But Mrs. Bogle, what was the ratio like for girls to boy at the Meadowbrook at the time?
I think it was about 2/3 of
Girls? More girls than boys?
no. Less. What I'm saying is there were fewer girls than boys.
Oh, really? In the early days, yeah? That's fascinating. That's your memory to Mr. Bogle?
I don't know that I would go that far. I think they were pretty even.
Even at the time, yeah.
Pretty even. But there again, I wouldn't. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But no, it was pretty
Even from your memory.
from my memory. But don't go into that.
Was Miss Peterkin at the school when you worked there?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Was she what I said?
Yeah. Because I came there sewing first. Miss Peterkin taught me Bible knowledge.
She was a Bible knowledge
Yes.
teacher. Yeah.
She was a Bible knowledge. I didn't think she left more than a year after. Yeah, Miss Peterkin. A former student spoke about her in a recent podcast. Pauline and Errol Henry spoke about Miss Peterkin. Or she used to take the bus with them and that sort of thing. So yeah. I know Miss Peterkin. She taught me Bible knowledge. So yeah. Didn't help much.
I'm curious to know what subject did you really like?
No, what I was good at Miss Nelson was reading history, geography, that I love.
Okay.
So I read a whole heap of cricket book, geography, and the cricket work together because cricket took me all around the world.
Yes.
That was my brain. It's like I read cricket book, I read books. You know, so I love history and that's what when I went to university, that's how I got my degree in BA in history. Because I love reading, still do. Love reading and have conversation. That's why any conversation I have, I always have something can say because I read a whole heap. Still do and listen more than I read these days. So yeah.
Well, cricket, of course, was my sport.
Yeah.
It was sports that won me the Rhodes Scholarship. It wasn't my brain. It was athletics, sports. I mean, I was good at all sports. And when I was at the University of the West Indies, I got the West Indies to take part in the cricket competition in Jamaica, high senior level and senior level. I captained the team.
So you played on university team, Mr. Bogle, and you played senior cup at the time. I don't know what they call it then, but you played on the university team. That's what you're saying.
I inaugurated the team.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So cricket was where?
At the university. I think that's one of my big achievements, getting the university to agree and the Cricket Association of Jamaica.
I didn't know that, Mr. Bogle.
Quote me on that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Did Mr. Ward like cricket? Because when I spoke to Miss McLennan's relative recently, it is also Miss McLennan's favorite sports.
Cricket.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I spoke to her relative. Because Miss McLennan is no longer here with her. She passed 30 years ago. But she was principal during the time of those great years, just golden years, I call it.
I know.
7 trophies in. And she gave us a lot of support. I didn't realize that she was so, I knew you're saying. And she did say Mr. Wardlove, Reverend Wardlove cricket as well. So yeah.
We did. We had quite a good cricket team by the end of the time I was there, because we got the new field.
That was the new field, the bottom field, what we call it.
The bottom field.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about how that did that. When you went there, we didn't have bottom field at the time.
Didn't have that at all, and trying to arrange, proper games on that small field for cricket and soccer was almost impossible. You couldn't get a really good games on those fields. So I agitated a lot. First thing I did, I made this point to Mr. Reverend Ward. We've got to find, if it's possible, to get a field nearby. And he agreed, and Mrs. Saunders agreed, and they said, well, we'll work on it. And in my third year, they managed to secure that field and start developing it.
I didn't. So we got that field in 1966.
They got the field, they had it there all that time.
Oh.
And it wasn't in use. It was never used when I was there until the last year.
Oh, till the last year. So,
Yeah.
okay, I got you.
Oh,
Interesting.
I didn't realize that. Well, they didn't use it for any sports.
So they owned the field while you were there, Mr. Bogle, and they just, oh, okay. Because they probably purchased the property before. Yeah.
They had the property before, but to put it to use as a cricket soccer field
Yeah.
started in my time.
Yeah. I didn't realize that either, Mr.
So Meadowbrook actually owned that field.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We own that field. I spoke to the current principal about that recently when I went down, and yeah, he's trying to cement the ownership of that field, with just making sure, because there has been certain
I didn't realize that
certain encroachment where people think they own piece of the land because they have been selling land around the field. Legally or illegally, I don't know. But Meadowbrook is either selling piece of Meadowbrook land, and it's like the principal agreed that if Meadowbrook don't exercise eminent domain, that's on the property, somebody else is going to. So he's working on that. I don't want to say much about that, but he and I have spoken about that. That's one of the primary things we want to secure. That property.
A nice big fence, perhaps.
Yeah, fence and just have a... Because what it is like, I look at it, if you have a piece of property and you don't protect it, and protect it meaning not say fence around it, it's almost like you have to live there. You think about it now, if you have a house at Jamaica and you just leave it there, even if it fence up, and you don't fall out, you will lose it.
Lose it, yeah.
Well, the school used the field currently, right?
They did stop using it for a while, Martin. They start using it. No, when I went down there last year for the homecoming, that's how I played the cricket match, a 15 over match. So they started using it. That's when
I have a question. Was the field a part? Okay, so let's say you had phys ed in third period.
Yeah.
Did you go to that field?
Yeah, man. Yes.
So there was travel time.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Class would be reduced.
Yeah.
What would be the point?
No, man, it was fun for us doing it. I understand what you're saying.
And
Like,
then some kids must have disappeared on the way.
no, that's the funny thing. That was a good question. That is not how Mrs. Nelson. What normally happens was like, and I don't know how Mr. Bogle did it. How did it? But I went to tell you what happened with me. The PE time. We had PE time, which would have been at school, like a stretching exercise. But sports time, like a separate two, was always the last 2 periods of the day.
Okay.
So I'm saying to you, so
Okay.
I think the facilitator that say, yeah, they're going to have a sports time, but they're going out of school a little later or something like that. But that's a real good question, Mr. Nelson, because it takes about 5-10 minutes to walk down the field. So when you say class start at 12 o'clock, you know you're not going to start till 12:20, but yeah.
Right.
That's right.
And then travel time back.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, there was no travel time back because it was the last year of school, yeah.
I'd like to interject here. I'd like to say that Don's job was full-time, and that meant Saturdays and Sundays. And part of those days were spent checking on the field so that the local boys did not take it over to anyone else really use it. So we were guardians of the
On
field.
the weekend.
Yeah, Mr. Bogle was exercising his eminent domain over the field. Right. That's what it was. He was legal term.
Many times from the front door, you could see it.
Yeah, because if you're not down there, for sure that you're in charge of the field, or the school is in charge of the field.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was that. And of course, when you build a nice cricket pitch,
Everybody
you don't
was
want to
here.
see the pitch.
No, right, you don't want to see pitch damage, yeah.
Yeah.
So you did the first.
That was preeminent. You got to preserve the pitch.
Yeah, because that was your sport, Mr. Bogle, yes. I agree. So you orchestrated building the first cricket pitch down at that field?
As far as I know, it was the first one, yes.
Yeah, so who was the groundsman at the time?
Gosh, I
Can't remember that.
his name I can't remember.
So why? Let me ask another question. Because why did they decide to put the pitch the way it was instead of the other way? It's something, you know, the pitch at Meadowbrook. In my time, the pitch was like, I don't know which way is north and south. one side was at the hill and the other side at the gully. I don't know if the gully was there at the time when you are the
There
drain.
must have been a good reason. I don't remember a gully there. There must have been a good reason
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the question of where the sun would shine.
Right. Maybe.
But that was changed, right?
Eh?
Change?
No, it never changed. It's still the same way.
Oh, okay.
Still the same way. And then the land across, there was a gully at the time you were there, Mr. Bogle.
No.
There was no drainage in between the land.
Drainage by the side of the house, yes.
No, not at top field, not at the bottom field, Mr. Bogle.
No, I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
No.
Because when I went there, I don't know if you remember when you got to bottom field, Mrs. Nelson.
No, I don't.
There was like a gully after the walk over. It's like there was a drainage that run between the two pieces of land. Meadowbrook actually owned the land across the field. I don't know if you remember the field matter, Martin. Like bottom field, and then you look across the gully, as we call it.
Yeah.
There was a piece of land where Whipper Cow was, Mrs.
Yeah.
Nelson. Meadowbrook owned those, but they sell that to some developer recently. So we don't own that anymore. And their apartment building on that side of the property. A whole heap of apartment building. And you're not quite remember, Mrs. Nelson, I say.
No.
But there was two pieces of land, but yeah.
I mean, we only use it for sports.
Sports
for
day,
events.
and then for us, it was regularly for us, we there at trainers, when our Martin playing soccer, you there every evening.
Right.
But as you said to me earlier, you didn't have no reason to go there but sports day.
Just sports day.
Just like how you never know Mr. Top office was because you had no reason to go to Mr. Top office. I like some about, yeah. So Mr. Bogle, how do you feel when you put up that pitch? You remember the first match Meadowbrook played after you put that pitch up?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
And how did the boys feel? You remember how the boys felt when the pitch?
But oh yes, it was quite an achievement. And, it was celebrated in the school a lot, in assembly and so on. But I don't remember who we played against. You have to allow me a little slack.
No, I can't stop repeating stuff with both your memories, man. And that's I'm glad to be
One
able
of the important things in
Yeah.
But
Well,
not that.
well, let me ask a question for the record, though, because both are here on camera. I spoke with it before. How old are you, Mr. Bogle?
I'm 94 years of age, mid-95 in April.
And how old are you, Mrs. Bogle?
89, and I'll be 90 on March the 28th.
So you're 95 this year. 90 this year, sorry, yeah. So you're closer to 100, a century than, yeah. No, why I'm asking the question, how long have you guys been married?
We've been married 6 to 7 years.
Wow,
6 to 7 years, yeah.
wow.
Last December.
Yes,
December,
This past
yeah?
December here. This past December.
Yes.
Wow.
Don't ask me what is the secret. Because in the eyes of a lot of young people, we are dinosaurs.
Oh, you know how we have that with Mr. Bogle.
I always remember hearing Robert Mitchell being asked that question because he was married to the same woman. He said, lack of imagination.
No, it's fascinating to know if it's about a year in good spirits and in good strength and health that you can be having this conversation with us. It's like,
Thank you very much for asking.
and this is our, as I said, this is our first video record. I'm happy that it is with both of you guys, and Martin and Mrs. Nelson is here to keep the conversation going. And any questions they have for them, they can ask them. I mean,
We are honored to be part of this group, I can assure you, and for you to ask us, and for me a second time. And it'll be one of the great, feelings in my life that Meadowbrook did recognize my role there, which means a lot to, in thinking of my life and what I've achieved in life. Meadowbrook plays a very important part.
yeah,
And I must say at this point, I thank you for your hard work in making the memories of Meadowbrook possible. You know, it's a terrific achievement, and I'm sure that the feedback you've had has been very positive, and by a lot of Meadowbrook Gold students or people who didn't know about Meadowbrook have heard the podcast and have been have been influenced positively by these conversations. So thank you very much. And Meadowbrook will always be grateful to you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Bogle. I had no idea when I started this conversation, and this month is 2 years. In January, I started this conversation. I reached out to my friend, because I was, to use the Jamaican parlance, I was vexed. Because Meadowbrook had done terrific, the glory as I call it, 7 trophies in 4 years, a small Cinderella school as I call it.
Right.
And we won 7 major trophies in that time span, and it's almost like what's going on black hole. Like nobody was going to talk about it. Right? I was a member of one of the team, and I'm saying there were several teams, and I'm saying no. Even if I went to start to the football and the cricket team who won those trophy, and I just have that for myself and them and we share it, that would have been enough for me. I mean, I say, even if nobody else remember, and when I went down to Jamaica in 2016 at my mom's funeral, one of the guys reached out to me, and I must call them name, Carlton Facey and Donovan Thomas, and they have both been on the podcast, Ted Greg or Dante, and they said they have a ticket trophy for me. Right, my mom had just passed, right, and they said they have a trophy for me. And I said, why? And I said, no, Jelly, we never forget this, you know. But I always know, say, Meadowbrook achieved a certain amount of things in 1980. And after that, I committed myself to say, you know what, the podcast wasn't in my head as yet, but what was in my head was my book. I wanted to write a book about Meadowbrook days in those times. And I actually have finished the book. And I will present you, Mr. Bogle, with a manuscript of the first copy of the book.
Oh, wow.
Stop right there. Yes. I printed it out.
That's incredible.
That's wonderful.
Thanks, Francis Aron. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Great pleasure in reading. It's a labor, not a labor of love. It's just pleasure for me to write the book because I was inspired by the team. When they reached out back to me and said they wanted to, they didn't want it. That's what they remember. And I said, and then you start to think about certain things. After my mom passed, you start thinking about yourself, but you start thinking about your own. Yes. I said, okay, this is what I achieved for Meadowbrook. This is what we achieved for Meadowbrook. Let's talk about it. And I wrote the book. 1 year, I've completed the book 1 year. 1 week, I just got up and write every morning and finish up the main part of the book. And I just have it here for the longest time. I started the podcast. And then I decided, and a good friend, a former Meadowbrook student, Lindsay Quarry, helped me publish it and get it over the finish line. I have to mention it.
Another famous name.
Yeah. No, I'm not related to Dana Quarry. No. But that's your copy. That's your copy. The first copy, Mr. Bogle, so your copy.
Did you autograph it?
Not yet. I won't do that. I will take pictures with that. Yes. I won't do that. I will take pictures with that after. But yeah. That will be on the cover. The tartan blue. Yeah. And it's basically my story and my history, you know. But what I want to do is in the book, all the podcasts are going to have a QR code for all of the podcasts throughout the book.
Yes.
With the people name, you just scan it and you listen to the podcast.
Okay.
And I'm going to make the book available digital and hard copy. So yeah. And I'm going to sign that your copy, Mr. Bogle. I will sign it. So
Thank you. I'm not ready to call you on with this.
Definitely. I appreciate that.
I'm curious, Glaister, jelly. Where did that come from?
Wow.
Which is a British name.
You mean the
Where did
glaze
that come from?
The glaze
No,
Let's
jelly.
Jelly. Okay, let me tell you where the jelly came from.
Glaister I'm good with.
Let me
Jelly.
tell you where the jelly came from. I was always a little chubby, no matter what. And when I ran, my belly was always jumping up and down. Like a jelly.
Take the Jamaican to come up with something. So
I got that name from Pembroke first, you know. That's what they used to call me in Pembroke. It's the only place, it's the only name That's synonymous with both places. Jelly. Because most of the people in Permacal know me as Lance, not Glaister. Right? And at Meadowbrook is Glaister or Prince or the Jelly as they say. That's why I use all four names, all of the names there, yeah. But that's the story behind that name, Mrs. Nelson.
I take it you didn't represent Meadowbrook at track and field.
I spoke about that famous race in that book, Mr. Bogle. Slowest 100 meter race that was ever run at Meadowbrook. Yes, yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Vivian Thomas.
Yeah, so.
Wow.
Yes.
And the Hugheses.
Yeah, I interviewed them recently, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Phyllis is no longer here, you know,
Yes.
but I spoke to
Yes.
Valerie and Joe, yeah, and another friend, Maureen Lopez, a good friend of theirs. So yeah.
Do you remember a young man, the last name is Dewar, Dewar?
Which one of them?
Roy, is it Roy?
Yeah, man, there were two brothers at the
Yeah.
time, and we were talking Roy and Roy Dewar. They used to own the gas station, man.
Yes.
The Shell gas station, right?
Yeah.
Near Price Right, across the road from Price Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roy and I don't remember the name in the book there, Mrs.
Yeah, I
Nelson.
saw it. Yeah. When I took a group of students to Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. He was one of them. Yeah. Yeah, I remember him. They were, and they were another set of the wars after, but they weren't related at all.
No,
Completely
no.
different. Derek and Tracy.
And the Walkers, I remember the Walkers, because one was related to Miss McLennan.
Yes. They were niece. Both of them were
Yes.
niece. Carol and Inga. Yes. Yeah.
I was asking somebody about those girls the other day.
They were on. Carol got in touch with me because when I did because I'm on another program, Meadowbrook Angels, where I go. The idea was to talk about Meadowbrook students or past teachers who are no longer with us. And I started out with Miss McLennan. So when I did a program about that, Meadowbrook Angels with Miss McLennan, Carol reached out to me on that show, and then I did a podcast. That's why I ended up did a podcast with Miss McLennan's sister, Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
and her other niece, Sonia, I think her name was, Miss Dixon. So that's all. But Carol, that's how I got back in touch with Carol. Inga wasn't available, but Carol and Mrs. McLennan's sister, Miss McLennan's sister was on that podcast. So yeah. And I put some of a team in there at the back, Mr. Bogle might recognize. Who are the early cricket teams from Meadowbrook. I don't know if you were there at the time, maybe before your time, because I don't see any pictures. I think those teams are.
I see male teams. I don't see any female teams.
That's not my fault, Mr. Nelson. I've been trying. Listen,
sure they're
I'm glad you bring that
I'm
up.
sure they're coming.
There's no female team. You know what?
All boys school?
That's not, no. It's not my fault, Mrs. Nelson.
Okay.
I have reached out to the softball team, and they were successful in the 80s as well. I made several attempts to get them on the podcast to come and talk,
This is fabulous.
and they have not responded to me. But that one weekend I was supposed to do it, and it didn't come true. And then,
This is quite an achievement, Lester.
but I want them to, yeah.
A question. So 200 students when you said
Less than 200, between 150 and 200.
How
Yeah.
many teachers are we talking about? Do you remember how many staff you had?
Oh. Well, I can only I named 7 teachers.
7.
So there's more than that. It would be about 12.
12 teachers.
Yes.
Or the average size of a classroom, would you say?
Yeah.
Numbers.
You know, when were you there, did you say?
I was there 75 to 85.
It's
And there were large classes then.
It must have been.
30, 40 kids.
How many teachers were there when you were there? 75 or 85 at your time? How many teachers?
Did they?
A lot.
A lot,
But the
okay.
classes were still huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there were some part-time teachers as well, so it's hard to put a number on it.
Right.
The art teacher, for instance, we had drama and music teachers. It was a big program in drama at Meadowbrook and art, in which we did well. And of course, there's a quiz, the TV quiz program.
Yeah, the school challenge.
Yeah.
Quiz. I didn't realize it was that old. That's what they call it in those days, Mr. Bogle, school challenge.
School challenge, that one, I was responsible for coaching the kids
Okay.
as well as, putting Meadowbrook forward to take part in it, and they were doing darn well. Darn well.
Oh, yeah, we were not to be left out.
No.
I remember
Meadowbrook was up
taking-
there in the school's challenge.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you remember it as a big part of the school program in your time.
The school challenge, it was.
Well,
Not a preparation, I went in.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
JCDC, Jamaica
Cultural Development Commission.
From a Spanish club, and this is a group that I took to Puerto Rico eventually, but they got involved in that competition. And I remember the kids going, and I have a photograph back home, black and white, from the local paper where they were performing in Spanish. This long time gown we never see, all in Spanish.
Oh,
So our students were excelling, not just, on the sports
that's
field,
right.
but culturally too.
Yeah.
The woman who came in from the NDTC, who was coaching them
Yeah.
to perform even better than I could have. So there was that emphasis on cultural
Culture.
excellence.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The drama teacher was a world-class teacher.
Yes.
Yes. She
So,
was,
as you talk about, how did you recruit teachers, Mr. Bogle? How you found those quality teachers?
in
Compared to such a young
in
school?
her case, it was through knowing a good friend of hers who was big in the world of drama in Jamaica. But normally it was there were advertisements in the English papers, which I checked on. English teachers or foreign teachers advertising to teach in Jamaica, and I
Okay, I got
contacted
you.
them. And it was a hit and miss because you're going by references.
Yeah.
Which sometimes, are not always
Yeah,
accurate.
so
They had a sports decision I made to get a sports master. The first one turned out to be a very bad decision. Although he claimed he was very good at cricket and soccer, in fact, the only sport he knew was rugby. But luckily,
he wasn't being forthright then.
and he wasn't happy at Meadowbrook. I didn't make his life very happy.
Yeah.
You understand that? I didn't fire him, but he left. He left.
Didn't
And then I
really
got a
respond.
very good sportsmaster, Ron Jones, and he was very good at teaching cricket and soccer. Unfortunately, when I left, he came with me, and Meadowbrook lost him.
Okay. When you left, yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. You have your regrets. You did talk about your regrets in that. Yeah.
What's his name? I have to let him in. He's coming back, isn't he?
He'll call me.
He'll call you.
Yeah, I hope.
Good.
That's a good question. I'm gonna
Yeah.
get him back.
You would have to call, yeah.
Yeah, we sorted it out. I didn't think more of that at all, guy. I didn't probably never think about it either.
Ah,
That's mine.
I'm calling you. You have a number for you, Mr. Bogle?
No, he doesn't have my number. No. This is my phone is
Probably
losing the
not.
charge. That's all.
We hear a knock on the door, I hope. We might.
We won't know.
But you have your number, Martin?
No. Well,
MG have the number. So you call one of us then. You will call. And Martin, you have your phone
Yes,
back.
I
Vibrator.
Yeah. You have a call. You will return. Or text him then. Text MG if you get him number.
We don't need it.
What up?
Starling.
The starling.
Yeah.
It's a set of birds who are small but work good together as a team.
I just thought there was a connection with Meadowbrook, but
Yeah.
Okay, good, nice.
And then it sounds like a play on words, a starling.
I like that.
Yeah. It is but so Mr. Bogle, Mrs. Bogle, were you surprised when you realized that Meadowbrook had succeeded so much in the 80s? When you heard about, because I didn't hear about it at all until when? When you realized that Meadowbrook had won so much things?
Had won
All those trophies, yeah.
I was very surprised.
When you first heard that you had won so many trophies?
Beaches.
Just shortly
Yeah.
after we won the
Walker Cup.
the Walker Cup.
Walker Cup.
What year was that?
1986. That was the last year we had won any trophy since then. All the trophies had won before that. Yeah. So you heard about it in the 80s?
Yes,
Okay.
because living in Canada, I had no contacts with Meadowbrook at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I never followed up on it, but of course I was really surprised and pleased. I really couldn't believe it. I thought this is wonderful. You know,
That the small school you had
an
left.
old school like Meadowbrook could develop so rapidly to produce a competitive soccer team and cricket.
You won more cricket trophy than the soccer trophy, yeah. And you must be proud of that too, because yeah,
I think we were very fortunate in being connected with Meadowbrook.
yeah.
It was a really exciting time because it was a small school and things were happening and we were part of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's funny, we were talking to my son about this and he is 65 now and he remembers the particular event we had at the house. We put on a dinner, chicken for Halloween. And some of the girls were dressed up as cats and witches, so on. And he remembers that. And he said it just stuck in his mind. Yeah.
In that connection, of course, go ahead.
No, go on.
Meadowbrook got little or no help from the government. But the big cry was that the government had no funds to help. It was all self-help. And I think that perhaps the biggest part of my job in the time I was there was raising funds in order to improve the school's facilities. Particularly, of course, at the court. And the library block, for me, was a proud achievement, getting that done. We, in fact, managed to get every penny for that library.
Without government help.
Without government help.
Yeah.
We had our staff meetings there.
Yeah.
I remember just sitting there and looking around and this is a good place to be. Yeah.
And it's more than this, so we never get help in Mr. Bogle. Sometimes we were penalized for being a small school. And I'm going to tell you, and I didn't know this until way afterwards, Martin and Mrs. Nelson. Meadowbrook reached the Colts finals in 1977. And Mr. Beckford, who taught with Mrs. Nelson, was the coach of the team. And reached the finals and we played in Tivoli Gardens. And that year was the year of dengue fever. So like more than half of the team contracted dengue. I didn't remember because I didn't contract it. Right? So we couldn't find 11 strong players. And Mr. Beckford wrote and asked or called the president of the sports body in Jamaica, the ISA, school sports body, and they said no. Just to postpone the game because dengue and it affected, and he said no. So it's like, and we lost that finals disgracefully, and I wrote about that in the book and that sort of thing, because we could not be competitive because our best team wasn't on the pitch. But we learned. You know, so sometimes, and listening to the podcast with a lot of these guys, a lot of them I think would have made the West Indies cricket team during my time, but because I went to Meadowbrook, they didn't.
They didn't get the exposure.
Right. So that's why I'm glad I have this podcast. I can run them out and talk about it, because without that, nobody would know that. And they say to their own words. I had my own experience where I went for a trials and for the Jamaica junior cricket team. And the day I went to the trials up in St. Mary in Grayson, Martin, they gave me the pencil to score. I didn't get a chance to play bowl one ball, Mr. Nelson.
I know the soccer team, I think Albert Ashley did represent Jamaica. So that was a good thing.
Yeah, man. So, no, the point is that when Meadowbrook students represent, it is the punching way above the way. They're well better than most of the rest of them. So, yeah. So let me ask you the same question, Mr. Nelson. Were you surprised? You were there at the time. during the 80s. Did you recognize the achievement and what it would have meant to the school, to us, to me, at the time when we were winning so many trophies? And you are not a sports person. I can't put this game out there for you, but yeah. Did you realize the impact it would have had?
I know from the energy that I saw with Mr. Beckford and Lennox Dean when it was sports time.
Yeah.
It was all about sports, and the students were always around him, trying to get tips or whatever. So I knew that, but I have to say I was more on the academic side.
Right.
So the focus was on the Spanish and getting the kids to be more fluent and creating these opportunities for them to excel, in the classroom and outside of the classroom when I took them to Puerto Rico. So no, I wasn't so focused on the sports. But we all can't be focused on sports.
No, right.
But that's what makes Meadowbrook such a great school, that we were excelling academically and we're excelling in the sports world. And maybe the two were not meeting, maybe they were not. I think a couple of the students told Andrea Martin, I think some of them played netball.
Yeah, man, Andrea did play netball. Yeah. It wasn't right.
It was either or, it could be both. I'm sure you excelled in history.
Right, I was just sports focused alone. I was I did my academics in because I was in sixth form, right?
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of
never encourage students to just focus.
No, right.
Not the way it is today. I mean, you got to be an all-round student. You got to do well, in academically in order to be able to perform on
no, man. And that went throughout all the teams at Bogle. Even the last team that won a trophy for Meadowbrook, 1986 Sunlight Cup team, about 5 or 6 of the players were in sixth form. And most of them came up through the ranks from first form to Meadowbrook. So it's not like we talked about it earlier, where it was like you import 4 or 5 all of the team to come play sports. You see what I'm saying there? So yeah.
So in fact, really, the time has passed by that Meadowbrook could now win a major trophy in view of the way that they now buy sports players to come to schools. Unless Meadowbrook is prepared to do that, I don't see how Meadowbrook can now win a major trophy.
Without that.
Well,
and that is a dilemma. That's why I brought it up. That is a dilemma where any principal, whether it is you, Mr. Tarp, or the current principal, Mr. Face, you have to face in terms of say how stay competitive without, in a sense, the value and the culture of the school. And the culture of the school is academic and sports together. Can we compete? And maybe the answer, what do you think about that? As a sportsman, Martin, you come in with sports. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, up to recently, we didn't have a soccer team. We didn't have a track team. I mean, sports kind of were on the back burner, right? I mean, obviously, a lot of students weren't seeing Meadowbrook as their first choice. I mean, people who want to play sports, right? They want to go to Calabar or KC or JC, right? And I mean, even one former player, I mean, you like Hitchcock.
Alfred, yeah.
I mean, he was the coach for
GST one back. I started back in the 2000. Yeah.
You know, you didn't have enough students coming in to probably field a team, right? So, I mean, what do we do? I mean, the thing is, Meadowbrook is not attracting sports people, as it were, right? Or if they come, they probably leave.
Well, you know what? I want you to promote my book a little bit, because my answer to that in the book, because this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, We did it already. In a short period of time in the 80s. We didn't lose the quality of the academics, but we excelled in our sports. We won 7 trophies in our 4 years.
So
and
it can be done.
It can be done, Mr. Bob. It can be done. And they say the energy of sports providing is carried over after 40 years, where if you realize these conversations I'm having, it's mostly, it started out with the sports people doing it, but it re-energized everybody, including you, Mrs. Nelson. I'm surprised that you are fascinated in the conversation, and I don't keep it sports oriented, I spread it around to everybody. But it started out in my mind, and I said, let me talk to my sports team then. In a sense, and even outside of school, sports generates a lot. I talked about it earlier. But it's how Meadowbrook bring it up. But I actually wrote it in the book in terms of say it was done before. Mr. Here, Mr. Beckford, Mr. McGregor were integral part of it in terms of how it was done. I think it can be done again.
It's going to be very difficult. In that connection, you know, I was in Jamaica for the latest champs.
Mm-hmm.
It was there for Friday and Saturday. And I never heard Meadowbrook's name once mentioned. That's
Right.
any event competing.
Right.
And I thought, what's happened to Meadowbrook?
They,
I'm
they
just wondering too whether there is, I know the whole topic of financing a sports team, whether, you know, that's also a problem that is reaching the team. You know, you probably have people who love to participate, but I mean, they can't really finance the team. You know, I know for the soccer team, you know, they had problem, you know, taking the players to, you know, games and all of that stuff. I mean, you know, that's another thing that you have to look at. You know, it's not necessarily, you know, having students coming in to play sports, but also to actually support these students, you know, if they want to participate in sports.
recently, you know, they talk about champs. And recently, Sharon Robinson, I don't know if you remember her.
The name sounds familiar.
She went to Meadowbrook, and her daughter was Olympic 400, right, Tanya Richards, the Olympic 400 meter champion, and she gave a pep talk to, and I will put it out when I get it edited and that sort of thing. I wasn't there in the pep talk, but Nadine, a former, she's the president of the New York alum, put it together and arranged with the current coach to talk to the current crop of students for go to champs. So as they talk about that, so what things are putting in place where we're trying to get a momentum starting again. Because when I was at Meadowbrook, and at the time, when I think with Meadowbrook, you know, it's like, and Martin can attest to this, one student will be playing 3 or 4 sports, football, cricket, and him run. Right, we do have the numbers for this, it's something there for play. So I don't say us winning champs, but we can certainly compete, Mr. Bogle. We used to compete, even if 1 or 2 students, we have won 100 meters, we have won 400 meters, Jeffrey Walters, the first gold medalist of Meadowbrook. Even before my time, my brother-in-law won a track scholarship, I think he's the first, Stedman Mason, won a track scholarship to University of Nebraska in the 60s. Donald Meir, Stalley, a former Donald Meir, I think he was the only person. I don't know if you remember him, I love getting him on a podcast. That's why I hear calling him name. I'm weird. And I love getting him to come and tell. He was the only person so far who have no run Carifta, won the 800 meter for Jamaica Carifta games, junior Carifta from Meadowbrook. 800 meter, 1980. You see what I'm saying to you? So we did, but track and field is a solar sports, you know. So no one then we can produce wonderful athletes because they have the dedication and the motivation to do it. To other winner team sports. That's why the team sport what we want to send it was so much more got more people involved.
You can produce the odd excellent runner.
Yeah man, you can.
But to win champs,
you can. No, I don't say
team event.
I don't say win. Let it be Mr. Bogle, I think Dean is back. You saw him? Yeah. Yeah man, he go ahead and come back. Yeah. No, but it is
even a school, let me like Wolmer's can produce
good track runner, but they can't win champs. They can't provide the number for win champs. No. It is not. And if a small school it will be, I'd have to get a template. But school, I'd have to check and see which was the last quit school or even a small school who won champs. Maybe Excelsior.
Some of the rural schools are doing okay too.
Yeah. You know the one that comes to mind that dominate both girls and boys champ? St. Jago, but they have the numbers. And they have a long history. They have been maybe the oldest high school in Jamaica, St. Jago. Yeah.
When I was at St. Catherine, that was our
yeah, they have their sporting history both in a champs though. They have one champs, both girls and boys champs.
Uh-huh.
Them to play up in, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it.
In area for sure.
Yeah, in Spanish Town, right.
Larger
Yeah.
catchment
Thank you.
than you, yeah.
I'm far too young to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, how are the girls doing in sports in that Meadowbrook?
I
I
got
know
that.
you're focusing on, and that's okay, but how are the girls? We hear about, Shelley Price, we hear about all the world-known female Jamaican athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear too much about the men.
No, right.
Since,
Since both. Right.
So why are we not hearing more about the women at that level?
I've never broke it talk in
Meadowbrook, but some of
in
the other
general?
schools, yeah.
I don't know. I do have answer for that.
I think one of the issues when it comes to we who live in diaspora and in the diaspora and how we want to support schools back home is a question being asked: do you want to support the school's athletic program or their science program or their math program or teams? And
Yeah.
I think most people would say, I'd like to just support the school itself, the academic program, because then you're hitting every single student, as opposed to when you're just supporting a team, you're just hitting a team. And so that could be a way of, I don't know if that's hindering a sports program, because people are donating to the entire school as opposed to a specific area, subject area, or
I
sports
think though
area.
that if you find that the school is lacking fun, I think the last place they probably want to put fun is in sports.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but here the dilemma with that now.
Mm-hmm.
And even here it's like a sports bringing the money. It's like if
That's a
it,
different kind of
We're talking about ordinary.
yeah, no, but
Type people.
even in Jamaica,
Yeah.
even when you are at Meadowbrook, the sports build the momentum and the vibe for the school. Even if you pick one team and they start good and the student feel good about it, it almost energizes the rest of the school.
Yeah.
That's in my view. It's like
I agree.
sports is like, and we can go back to, you remember when the West Indies cricket team was doing well, right? Oh, it energized the entire region. Energized the entire region under that great West Indies team of the 1980s. And when we're not doing well now, it's like, so I'm saying that sports is an underlook and an important part of the weight name there. It's something.
It's a catalyst, there's no doubt about
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
think in times of, economic restraint, when you have people who may want to donate to a school, are they going to say donate to a particular team?
It's an interesting discussion, Mrs. Nelson. I don't pretend to say I know the right way. I just saying what I've seen and say. It's like even at Meadowbrook now, if we can just, how you going to get, how you going, in my mind, this is why I want to start talk about it. In 2058, Meadowbrook could be 100 years old. Most of us won't be here. Guaranteed. Most of us will not be here. What sort of vision we want to leave for Meadowbrook when Meadowbrook becomes 100 in 35 years? What sort of big vision we have? How can we galvanize the school population, former and current, to say what you want? What will make them want to contribute back to Meadowbrook? That's a question I got to keep asking. Some must ask. I won't say that. I'm calling it Seattle Franklin. Licopelli as a nickname. What will galvanize our school to make people, the community, the entire community who used to come to Meadowbrook, the former people like us,
Yeah.
and the people who come up, and anyone who can answer the question, what will galvanize a population, a student body more than anything else?
It's a difficult question to answer. It requires the participation of all aspects of society to contribute to the improvement of schools. But let's face it, it's not only in Meadowbrook, but in a lot of parts of the world, in England, in Canada, in America, education is under fire on many sides and in trouble.
And the chopping blocks
And
enough.
the quality of education is falling dramatically. And so it's a tough struggle that we face with. I wouldn't like to be a headmaster of a school right now. I had an easy job compared to what these jobs have today. You know, it's school is a reflection of society, and society has, in our opinion, found its emphasis on other things besides education.
Yeah.
And I mean, in this scenario, society is focusing on a lot of sports, right? Especially the Jamaican school. But yet still Meadowbrook is not as far off, right? I mean, why is that so? You know? I mean, is it a culture thing where the ed is not really too interested in it? You know?
You bring up a good point there. And before you say that, and when I say this, I'm not necessarily a sports-oriented person. Because my view is, let's say Meadowbrook decides that they're going to be the best drama school in Jamaica, or the best high-tech school in Jamaica, and they're going at that lane. But however raise funds to get that. So I'm saying the thing will generate more attention than anything else and bring in money because it's the sports. That's all I'm saying now. But to answer your question, Martin, is like, when we were at Meadowbrook and I won, winning all those trophies, we had tremendous support from Miss McLennan. Maybe after Miss McLennan left, I don't know, I can't say, the support. Like Mr. Bogle was love cricket. He laid the pitch down there and set up the netball. Not just cricket alone, Mr. Bogle recognized. Let me ask you the question then. Why you thought it was important to have a netball coach? Why never say, no, Meadowbrook is an academic school and focus on that? Why you made that choice, Mr. Bogle?
Because I think sports and physical development is a very important part of one's overall development in life. I mean, remember the motto from the old days, a sound mind in a healthy body. That, to my mind, still applies. You know, it's a basic requirement. It's a generalization. But I think it's fair and certainly it was possible in my time in the building up a school. But, you know, today there are so many other interests for school children. I think it's just amazing the distractions that exist in modern life compared in our time.
You can't get them to go outside.
I do recall, however, and you're right about sports being a catalyst. I remember being in my class and there was a game that was going to be played and we were allowed to let the kids out early, and that was the best thing that they could have.
Right.
They were restless. I don't remember what game it was, but everybody went because they weren't going home. They were going to be a part of the cheerleading crowd.
Right.
And it did something to the school. It did something to the lesson. I don't think you could teach anything
right.
Because they were so focused on what this team was going to do for their school.
Right, the team.
So I remember that. Just as you were speaking.
And I think it will probably still happen.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. And the team sport is more important than any other sport. The team itself.
The team, for sure.
Right, because on a team is like somebody have a friend on the team or an ex-friend or something. Yeah.
Or even when we had the house competitions.
Right.
I remember Bogle House. You always won. I was in Ward House. We always lost. But there was competition.
Yeah.
There was something about, forget about the academics and
Right. The competitiveness of sports. Yeah.
Still,
Very important.
go to class the following day.
Right.
Presumably they still have all that stuff.
I hope so. Eisteddfod, remember that? Eisteddfod is a British term,
Yeah.
but I think they would
the
compete
Eisteddfod.
against in poetry or drama or whatever.
Yeah.
I could have maybe I'm mixing up with Excelsior.
That was
But it
one.
was a part of the if you are part, the houses competed against each other,
Yeah.
not just in sports.
No, drama, debate, competition. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Who could forget debate? So all of those things.
Yeah, and that was part of the
Still as
competitiveness,
units,
man. Yeah.
experiences.
But the sports there was the premium and the matches, and the cricket and the football at the time. But yeah, I can't say that. So you have any thoughts on it, Martin, in terms of what you think can be done to galvanize a student for one get back to them school?
I think what we're doing currently, I mean, your exposure to it, the various alumni, I think those are really strong ways to really mobilize. I mean, I know for me, granted, you know, I've always seen Meadowbrook as you know, very special to me, to my development and everything, right? So it's no brainer to want to give back to Meadowbrook, right? But I think the various alumni and various, you know, like what you do, and you know, like when we have homecoming, all that sort of stuff. I mean, these are different avenues that can be used to try to mobilize past students and engage, you know, the principal and other stakeholders to try to push Meadowbrook. So,
Yeah, undoubtedly, that's
Yeah.
definitely true. But I think it has to originate with leadership, strong
Yeah, man.
leadership
Yeah,
at the school,
That's what I mentioned. It's my
involving,
book. Yeah.
every aspect of school life, involving every branch of school, the Parent Teachers Association, the old boys, the old girls, the alumni, as I say, but leadership, staff, of course, let's not forget the staff as well.
But the leadership come from the staff, to Mr. Bogle. I just say leadership. I'm going to tell you, two names come to mind. And you talk about one of them earlier before the podcast, and he left a legacy. And it's like what Bishop Gibson did for KC. That legacy still lives on.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying to you? What Clive Wright did for the West Indies team have not lived on. Why? What did Bishop Gibson do different than Clive Wright? Clive Wright led a great West Indies team. Leadership again. Bishop Gibson started an institution which today still. So what is the difference between the two? What is the difference between the two things? Not the same, but yeah, what I'm saying is like when leadership, Bishop Gibson was special. I didn't go KC, as you know, but I have great respect for them because of the legacy when leave that they still talk about. But what did he do different?
Well, of course, it started off being an outstanding minister of the gospel and a bishop, you know. That alone earned him tremendous respect. And he had such a wonderful character. The ability to speak and in a quiet manner wield a great deal of influence on the boys. Because after he left, the school deteriorated, not terribly, but because he was followed by another very nice man who I can't remember his name.
Douglas Forrest, I think. Doug Forrest. Mr. Forrest.
Forrest.
Yes,
Mr.
of course.
Forrest.
Yeah. We got on well. But after that, I mean, KCL did deteriorated in some ways.
But they're still a premium school.
It's still a premium and they still do well.
Right.
Got how many kids go there now?
I don't know.
Nearly 3,000.
There's a lot of kids, yeah. But you see the thing
For
is,
sports, that's helpful.
yeah.
Tradition.
Right, and kids want to go there, right?
But
What are your thoughts on it, Mrs. Bogle?
Sorry?
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a different age, let's face it. And, but I still think that leadership is important. And to stand by what you believe in, because you were brought up a certain way by your parents. And I think kids rebel, but very often they go back to the way they were brought up. And they have, the people I know, and a lot of them have core values. And that, I think, is the important thing. But I think you have to have a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
Over the whole thing. But I think it's still in Jamaica, from what I see. It is different. They still have certain, I think, from what I see, have certain moral standards still. And a certain respect for people. That's another thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know how you change it, because with this modern, you know, I'm not good on the
Internet is, yeah.
yeah, right. But I mean, it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It's how
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
manipulated.
Yeah.
It's very hard. I wouldn't really like to be bringing up children these days. You know,
Yeah.
Our grandkids, yeah.
Invented.
Oh, yes. And the consequences if you didn't carry it out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mrs. Nelson, about how you get people for one to buy into a vision? What would Meadowbrook like? What do you tell them? What do you think needs to happen?
Well, you use the word vision. I think the principal has to have a vision. What is it you want for your school? Who do you want to be on your team? You've got to start with a vision. In my own practice, I had to explain that vision to my staff the very first day of the school, so that they knew exactly what I was looking for throughout the entire school year. And I think you have to follow that up with having what I call courageous conversations with your teachers, with your people who are going to be leading your teams, your sports team, so that you're all on the same page. And you do regular check-ins with them. Now, I don't know how this fits into the Meadowbrook model or the KC model, but I think a principal worth a grain of salt, and I think you would agree, has to have a vision for their school.
Undoubtedly.
You have to have a vision, and not only have the vision, but clearly communicate the vision to all the stakeholders.
Right. Including the students and the staff and the alumni. Yeah.
You know, and so if you were coming to my school in fourth form, you'd be meeting with me first before you went to class. Because I want to know exactly why you're transferring to my school. What are you bringing to my school? And I want to make sure that you're going to be maintaining your academic standards, as well as, you know, wanting to be on the soccer team. So we're all on the same page from day one. Not to find out later on, 2 weeks later, oh, I didn't know you wanted me to do that, miss. You know, so it's clear to everyone. And you become a member of the school, knowing fully well what is expected of you and what your teachers expect of you. Not just to sign into the class and attend class, because you know at the end of the day, you're going to go to your Manning Cup practice.
But yes.
So it's transparency.
Yeah. But let me ask a question, and then I move on to some what's a fun memory now about Meadowbrook. Because in my mind, it comes down to leadership. It does come down to leadership. And the question is, sometimes some schools, some countries are blessed with excellent leaders. So lead the country or a school in a particular. You think leaders are born or made? You answer that one first, Mr. Bogle.
Born, not made. Of course, that's been an age-old question. That one, whether they're born or made. But I think it's 50-50, really. You're born, of course, with a certain amount of talent, and of course, the challenge of life is the use that you make of the talents that God gave you. And I don't believe that that people were born leaders. You know, some are born great, some have greatness thrust upon them. Yeah. So, no, I think you develop leadership qualities through your upbringing and your strength of
sometimes circumstances, bring it about,
character, circumstances play a part. And but leadership, gosh, how to explain why some have it and others don't? But let's face it, it's a very unique quality, and there are darn few leaders of any class in the world today.
But that's why I have a question, Mr. Bogle. That's why. But when you're talking, Mrs. Bogle, you think leaders are born or made?
Well, I do feel that a lot of it is your moral character. That if you say something, if you carry it through, and not deviate.
Integrity then, yeah.
You can be sympathetic, empathetic, and all those things, but eventually you have to do the right thing. And stand by what you have said.
The courage to do the right thing, yeah.
Exactly. But, it's an easy thing to do. Well, it's not an easy thing to talk about, but to carry it through, particularly with people getting at you, and all these comments on the
social media, yeah.
Oh, I can't believe people say these things about other people, you know.
Yeah, and you're right, most of the time those people saying it behind the hiding. They don't have the courage to come across and say that's what they're saying, yeah. The courage to stand up for your integrity is not an easy thing.
It's not.
And that's part of the leadership thing. And very few people. That's why I don't have the answer. No. I'm just saying, what do you think, Mrs. Nelson, leaders are born or made?
No, I don't think there's a leadership gene. I know that you have to be born with it. If you're not exposed to people in situations of leadership, then, you know, that gene that you have may just as well dry up. I look at my own experience. I come from a long line of women who were teachers in porous Manchester, but I also look at people like Miss McLennan, like Mrs. Morris. I mean, I was a young black teacher then. When I was going to school here, I was the only black kid in my school at Donville's Collegiate. So seeing Miss McLennan, seeing Mrs. Morris, seeing the teachers I met at St. Catherine High, that meant something to me. It told me that I could be there too.
Yeah.
I could be there too. So you have to expose yourself to people who are in leadership positions, who sometimes look like you, who can mentor you, and just hope for the best. But I don't think there's a leadership gene. I don't think people are born to be leaders. They may be born to be athletes and cricketers.
Yeah, but not everybody born 6'10" and that's right.
Precisely. So I think it's your environment that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
How are you? We are positioned on this, Martin.
I mean, if I should choose one or the other, I'd probably say that they're made. Reason being is that, I mean, you could be born with a gift, but I mean, if you don't utilize it, if you don't, I mean, if we go back to the scenario of a sports personality, right? I mean, if we probably look at one of the greatest sports players, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, these guys, I mean, they had a gift, but I mean, sometimes they were the first to be at practice, the last to leave. So it's something that you have to develop over time, right? So I think if I should choose one.
Yeah, it's a little bit about that. And what Mrs. Bogle says is true. It's like, if you talk about Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, it's like, they didn't need nobody to push them. They stand by their own. Well, them keep them work to themselves. That's just part of the integrity. Like you set a standard for yourself and say, you want to do this. You want to throw up 500 hoops a day, or you want to do a podcast every week. You set the standard for yourself. You're not busy enough. Nobody not push you. You decide that that's what you're going to do. It come with that in a matter, and I don't know where it come from sometimes. Sometimes you love it and you just decide to say that's how I do it, and sometimes you just do it and I say that's why I do it. It's an interesting question.
You have, undoubtedly, and you have to have, as Christine said, the courage of your conviction to stand by the vision that you mentioned, that you have put forward, and you can't compromise on those principles that you stand by. Once you do that, the compromise, you've let yourself
credibility.
And
wide open.
And that is the problem. That's the biggest problem. It's like and it starts in the family. You know. It's like a compromise for your vision with your children them, or your grandchildren them, and I say what it's like. My parents never did. My parents did not hold me accountable.
Yeah.
When I get in a fight, them not say, them not ask me why me lose the fight. Them want to know what me could have done to prevent the fight. They never encourage the boy, oh, you need to punch him down. Like, what you could have done to prevent it from happening. Something, and my parents were not me in terms of, but they were leaders in a sense where it's like, they were quiet, but they get the point across one heap of ways to me. Both my mother and father. See what I'm saying to you? And them hold me accountable. Yeah, man, they hold me accountable. They hold me more accountable more than anybody else. Well, not me, all of us more accountable than everybody. Them not getting a bly. Use the Jamaican parlor.
Is that a good term, by the way? Bly?
Huh?
Is it a sports
No,
term?
no. In a sense,
It's that kind of sports term. Yeah.
Because, right?
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of a sports term, but it's not necessarily a sports term, Martin. No.
I mean, like, for example, if you're hosting the World Cup, right? As a country hosting the World Cup,
You
get applied.
Come in, yeah, related to sports, but you're right, maybe it's starting at sports,
I think
Martin.
it may have. I could be wrong.
But it's like applied, like you know, get a pass, you know, get a free one yesterday. Nobody. But let me ask you a question before we wind up, because I believe it or not, we have been here for almost an hour and 45 minutes, so we can start winding down. This has been very, very good. I love this. This is impromptu. This is the first time I doing something like this, and in a cold Canada. But again, I can't thank enough Mr. Bogle and Mrs. Bogle and Mrs. Nelson Martin for participating in this. But what are they? When you think back on Meadowbrook, Mr. Bogle, what's your fondest memory of Meadowbrook you're going to leave with us?
This memory of Meadowbrook. Gosh, that is a tough question because I have so many good memories. I'll tell you what my unfondest memory of Meadowbrook is, which, and before I go on to the other one, was the day that I left Meadowbrook.
Okay.
Because I did so, I almost had to be dragged leaving there. It
We didn't
was
want
a
to
very
leave.
difficult decision because I was extremely happy at Meadowbrook. Very happy. I love the school. I love the teachers. I love the students. I love the parents. Everybody was pulling together when I was there because there was a vitality existing at Meadowbrook at the time. This was a young school. We've got to make it a success, and I think everybody pulled together. My fondest memory, I guess, was the day that block of 2 senior classrooms and library was dedicated and opened. That day was a feeling of triumph for me.
And that was after the netball and the
After then, yes.
Okay.
A school without a library, without a place where kids can sit and.
How old year was that, Mr. Bogle? You remember?
That was 1965.
65. Okay,
Yeah.
a little before 2 years before you left then. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not going to answer the difficult question. I will just leave it there. Come on, you didn't want to leave. Somebody made you an offer you couldn't refuse. A Godfather offer.
Well,
You don't have to answer, Mr. Bogle. I don't want...
no, there was no money involved.
No. I said the other thing, Mr. Bogle.
Let me tell you this.
No,
I'll
Mr.
show
Bogle.
you this because you've seen the picture of the school.
Yeah, let me see. Let me hold it up here. Yeah. Yeah.
You
And I will take it back.
didn't know the type of accommodation I had at Monroe, which was primitive to say the least.
Yeah, this is Mr. Top. This is the principal's residence, right?
Yeah.
None of you Jamaicans have lived as primitively as we did, Christine and I,
The first
in
year.
Monroe. unbelievable. In a little
There were no school lights.
a shack, really.
You mean a boat shack? It could have been anyway.
Let's leave that alone.
Yeah. No, I'm telling
So you
people
can
about
imagine how excited we were to get
get.
it.
No, right.
Wilma's had nothing like this to offer me. They had no accommodation. The chairman of the Wilma's was a friend, a schoolboy with me. We went through school
Together, okay.
And he came to my home, came to this house 3 times to try to persuade me to go to Wilma's. And the big pull, of course, was my old school, and I was going to be the first old boy to
Okay, I got you.
So they dragged me.
It was hard to refuse. It was almost like a godfather for them. the entirety of them, yeah.
She was reluctant.
Yeah, but I can't see that like that. Somebody could entice me that yeah, man, you be the first principal for Meadowbrook or so and so. Come back, even if you have a night job like that, and you could have Meadowbrook was a school that was up and coming and building and things. So yeah, and I know you regretted that. I spoke about that in your podcast.
Yes,
So, yeah, you regretted that.
I did.
So what's your fondest memory of Meadowbrook, Mrs. Bogle?
My fondest memory for it was a delight to be at Meadowbrook and with all the girls. I got on famously with them. They were a great group and I really, really enjoyed my time there. I don't know what more I can say.
Any special incident that you can think of?
Oh, gosh.
So many of them.
So many of them, yes. And, I was very reluctant to move. And I have to say, and I will say it, that I never quite felt the same way. This was a co-ed school, of course, and I like being with a co-ed situation. And of course, Wilma's was definitely
All male, yeah.
and I was not quite as involved.
You didn't feel the same.
Yeah.
It's very different in company. Yeah.
It's interesting because you came from Hampton.
Yes,
all girls.
well, yes.
And then Meadowbrook, which is co-ed.
Yes, but I'm still in touch with a lot of the yeah.
So you went to
They
Hampton.
do a good job of keeping in. There's one girl particularly, Dorian Rowan Campbell, and she has all the
Everybody's
everybody's yeah.
You went to Hampton, Mrs. Bogle?
Yes, I
Okay.
taught at Hampton. Yeah.
And-
And looked after the sports programs there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me ask you something. Your accent is so different from Mr. Bogle. Were you born in Jamaica?
England.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And what age did you come to Jamaica?
22.
You still have that lovely British accent. Yeah.
He used to watch me play cricket.
Okay. That was the drawing card, yeah.
Well, I had 2 brothers who played cricket.
Okay.
I was very
Are you-
sports-minded.
And you played cricket for Monroe?
Did I play cricket for Monroe?
Yeah.
No. No, I played cricket for St. Elizabeth.
Okay.
Monroe didn't have
Have a team at the time?
No.
Okay. And then you went down and
I
played.
didn't go to Monroe, of course.
You went to Woodmore, sorry, you taught at Monroe. Yeah. Okay,
I
yeah.
taught at Monroe for 6
Well, I
years.
forget about that. Yeah, right. Thanks for that, Mr. Bob. Yeah. And Mrs. Nelson, what's your fondest memory of Meadowbrook?
Well, I may have mentioned it previously. I think just hanging out with the staff is number one, is up there on my list. But my fondest, perhaps, is when I took a group of kids to Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
The work that was involved in getting them their visas, going to the U.S. Embassy at 3 o'clock in the morning with a few of them, getting all the paperwork done, that remains up there.
A full disclosure, and I wanted to go on that trip. Even though I didn't like Spanish Mrs. Nelson, but you know why? Because just to get the idea to go up on a plane in the 1970s was a big thing for me. Travel. I always wanted to travel, right? But I didn't Spanish was my favorite subject, and parents just couldn't afford it at the time because I had to find a certain amount of resources to do it, and because I couldn't sell them the arguments. So yeah, them ask me to tell them some Spanish words, and I couldn't tell them nothing.
You see, had you been a good student,
Maybe.
it is what it is. No, that was a wonderful.
Yeah, man, I remember that trip. I remember pictures from that trip. I remember the students and what some of them talk about it even on the podcast and talk about it and see it. So yeah.
Quite an occasion.
That must have been some experience in them. So what motivated you to want to do that though?
I always believe that learning doesn't take place in the classroom alone. You can't just teach, between the four walls. You have to expose students, and so that's why there was a Spanish club. That's why you took them to the JCDC to perform, to get them that fluency. And so taking them to the nearest Spanish-speaking country was out of the question at the time. It was Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico was almost, it's still a part of the USA. It was easier to get to Puerto Rico.
We were able to go to the US Embassy.
Going to the Dominican Republic is a different thing completely.
Well, not at the time.
Dominican Republic was a different history at the time. As a core,
It was all Meadowbrook kids only.
Only Meadowbrook.
Boys and girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Spanish. There was president to that, on our podcast. There was a Spanish. I think they went on a trip. I don't know if it was Spanish exclusively. I forgot her. Jerry King, her sister was at Meadowbrook in sixth form. Andrea King. Her sister went on a group with Meadowbrook. She didn't go to Meadowbrook, but her friends were there, so she joined the group who went on a trip to, I think it's to Puerto Rico as well, to Mrs. Sense. I forgot to double check that time.
So did you have somebody to look after the boys, or did you look after
in those days that was not even an issue. You're quite right. Now it would be, somebody would have to. No, we stayed in hotels. It was all arranged through the travel agent. So there were, we had a few boys. We had most of girls. There was another teacher, Nancy Johnson, who accompanied me, and so everything was done, organized, and there were no issues with having a male supervisor and a female supervisor.
So
ideally, it would have been great if we had a male teacher accompanying, but no, we didn't.
So what sort of age group was
So I think you were definitely, what form were you in at that
Could have
time?
been first or second form.
Yeah, I don't think we had too many first formers.
No, it would have been second form. Maybe second and third form. Yeah.
So way before O levels.
Yeah. It would have been second form. Second. I don't know. So all the students went to there as well?
Just a few.
Okay.
Just a few.
That. I remember that trip, Mrs.
Yeah, it was a highlight. No doubt. I mean, and when you think about it, it's something that most students in a French immersion program here in Canada would do in their third year in grade 11. They would go to France, they would go to Spain, to We were doing it at Meadowbrook way before.
Right? No, a lot of things we did at Meadowbrook.
We were pioneers. I don't know of any other school
that did that. Yeah,
that's very impressive.
That did that.
You'd never have known that happened. That happened.
Well, there you go. That's
very
these
impressive.
podcasts are so.
Yeah. So Martin, your fondest memory of Meadowbrook?
I guess I could say Banning Cup, or I could say the girls. But it wasn't any of those. My fondest memory, and is something which continued to impact my life today, was April 30th, 1980, at the ICF meeting. I gave my life to God.
ICF is inter-school
Christian fellowship.
Yeah. So you remember the date, Martin? Excellent.
What year was that?
1980.
Oh, wow.
A Wednesday afternoon.
That's tremendous.
Right at the school.
Tremendous.
Yeah. It was part of the church. We had access to
yes.
room there.
Was it Reverend Daly who was our chaplain there?
No, it was cool.
Reverend Cook, yeah.
And you know, in following up that, it's very impressive to hear that.
Yes.
Let us never forget that Meadowbrook was a religious foundation.
Yeah.
Played a lot of stress and importance on moral Christian values.
Yes.
And I'm sure that that is very important in its foundation and history.
Yeah.
And I hope that that is still being maintained today.
Yeah. I hope so too. You know.
So what you were just called Martin at all of that just happened, or you got motive? This is not something. Let me ask you the question. 'Cause I've never. What I don't want to say what motivated. Why how you think it happened? I'm put the question that way. You don't know.
It's almost like a miracle. So that Wednesday afternoon, I mean, just hanging out as Monaco players. And that particular week, the ICF had some special meetings running from Monday to Friday. And this on that Wednesday evening, I don't know what happened, but I decided, okay, let me go over and see what was happening in the church, because the meeting was it was a film. So I said, okay, let me go and see what. So I was standing outside, and I almost got into a fight at the door. And I remember going back to Ira Turner and saying, you know, this guy wants to fight, you know. It's almost as if I was trying to get company to go fight this guy. Anyway, went back. I think the guy had gone. I don't know, but I went inside and I sat down and finished watching the movie. And then afterwards, probably remember Stephen Samuels. Stephen Samuels made a call, and I went up. You know, nothing planned. You know,
Very good.
that's why I say it must have been a miracle, because 1 minute I want to fight, and the next minute, you know, I'm
Yes.
giving my heart to God.
Impressive, Martin. Serendipitous, as I say. It is.
I mean, to couple with that, I mean, some of the friends which I've maintained through the ICF, you know, it's really amazing. You know, so.
Yeah. Good to hear that.
Powerful story.
So let me ask the last question before I ask any closing remark. And the last question will remain the same. I know I asked it before, Mr. Bogle, but if I ask again, you might have a different answer. In your opinion, what made Meadowbrook magical?
What made Perugo
Magical.
magical? What made it magical? Well, first of all, magical in the sense that in my experience, it's a new school. It hasn't got a history and tradition that is confining, that you in fact are, because of the position you find yourself as a leader, you are, by your actions, by your leadership, by your policies, you are going to establish a tradition for the school. And so it's vital that you do the right things and lay a solid foundation. And magical in the sense that everybody thought, who was associated with it, that it was a wonderful chance to build a school and to create a fine first-class secondary high school. And in that sense, it was magical.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bogle.
And to see it grow in the 4.5 years I was there was magical.
Thank you. And you, Mrs. Bogle, what made Meadowbrook magical?
Just being there, being part of it, helping as much as I could, being very much a part of it. I had 2 small boys at the time, which kept me pretty busy, and I just don't know. It was magical. It'll always be in my heart. Meadowbrook. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Christine. I had my two boys while I was at Meadowbrook,
Oh,
1980 and 1982. Both born in January. To be juggling a job and juggling two boys. And to be able to survive it. But I do remember there were some tough days, but I had a very, very supportive bunch of teachers around me. Sometimes my car didn't work and I was driving to school and I would be a few minutes late. And these were the days before a cell phone where you could phone it. But another special memory, I remember Mrs. Campbell.
Bursa. Yeah.
We had just purchased a house in Cherry Gardens. And we had nothing. We had a house and we had, basic furniture. And while we were both working, my husband was at Alcoa at the time. They broke into our house. And she called me up to the office. And this was not a school that was funded by the ministry. And she handed me a check. It wasn't a lot. But the idea that...
Ooh, a small school like that. Yeah.
Yeah. She was that something.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessary. There was stuff. It was material stuff. But the idea that she had this in her head, I don't know if it came from Mr. Thorpe or whomever, but small act. Who does remember stuff like that?
Yeah.
Of course. I'm glad you mentioned her name. She did play a
Who that?
Mrs. Campbell.
Mrs. Campbell.
Bursa, and she started the tuck shop and ran a very good.
Yeah.
It was profitable.
Yeah. There were times when I don't think we were paid because the checks hadn't arrived.
From the ministry, yeah.
And she would be explaining. So, it was like a big family. We
Right.
We knew that we would be paid. But for her to have done something like that was magnanimous.
A good person.
Yeah.
And you, Martin, what made Meadowbrook magical?
I think the contacts, friendship that you have developed, that you've maintained. One of my closest friend right now, it's from Meadowbrook, right? Teachers that you have met over the years. Always remember this one teacher, Miss Rosemary Martin. I don't know if it's because of the namesake, but it's friends.
What did she teach?
Literature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you have friends like Christopher Senior, Andrew Keane, who have since passed, was a good friend. So those things impact a lifetime. Still maintaining certain friendship after over 40 years. That's magical, definitely.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
So let me ask you each for a closing remark before I close out. And we have been here for over 2 hours and it don't feel like 20 minutes, the conversation. So what's any closing remark, Mr. Bogle, before I close out this?
Well, of course, immediately I think that of you and your contribution towards improving the spirit of the school, to helping alumni maintain contact with their school, think of their days at Meadowbrook, think of the good things that happened there, the contribution it made to their development. And I think that what you're doing is really very, very good. And I congratulate you and commend you for it. And I'm sure you must be having some good feedback for it. And I hope that it will, in fact, contribute to that thought that you have of why can't Meadowbrook once again regain its glory in terms of the competitions that it won and the role it played in many social and other activities in life in Jamaica.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bogle. And any closing remark from you, Mrs. Bogle?
I thank you for inviting me and making me a part of this, as I was a part of Meadowbrook. And I do cherish those days and the people I met. And I stay friendly with many of the people within the area in Meadowbrook,
Yeah.
as they were parents, and we maintained those friendships
Throughout the years. Yeah.
throughout the years. Yes, so it was a wonderful experience.
And you, Mrs. Nelson?
Well, first of all, I have to congratulate you for coming all the way from Florida. It's pretty warm. To here where it is not. But I think it's a measure of your commitment to what you're doing. And I would like to encourage you to continue with these podcasts, continue to spread the good word about Meadowbrook. And I will certainly try and do that in whatever way I can. This book that you have written, congratulations. I mean, I don't know of too many alumni who would do that. And you're not doing it just for your own good. You're doing it because you want to spread the word about this jewel of, St. Andrew, Meadowbrook High School. I thank you for inviting me again. I'm so happy that I met Paul and Christine. This is the second time we actually met at the reunion back in September. And here we are again. So don't be deterred. And just because your focus is a little bit on the sports side, don't get that. Continue to do. Sports has a role to play in Meadowbrook, and continue to do the good work that you're doing.
Very
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you, Martin, in the closing remark before I close out?
Yeah, as Mr. Bogle said, need to get back to that glory days, and I guess if we can live by our motto, let your light so shine.
Yes.
I mean, if each person can help the school in any particular way. I mean, it's just a little help, and you just never know how far that can go. I remember one year when we were doing gift basket to the school, right? And you give a little $20 or you give a little how much you can afford, and you just never know how far it can go. So get involved. Can definitely make a turnaround.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, and then let's close this out. Mr. Donald Bogle, Mrs. Christine Bogle, Mrs. Valerie Nelson, Mr. Martin Meredith. It has been a real pleasure that I, Glista Prince, can be having these conversations. Jelly. Don't leave that out. Jelly. Don't leave that out. That we can be having these conversations after 40 years with different generations of Meadowbrook people.
Yes.
Principal from the 1960s, when I wasn't even walking yet. And I can meet him finally. He's 94, and Mrs. Bogle is 90. That I can meet. Mrs. Nelson taught me. Martin and wife went to school together at the same time. It has been a real pleasure. And as I always close out this conversation, God bless all of us. And God bless that great school at 2A Meadowbrook Avenue, where we can have these conversations on a regular basis. And thank you all for coming and sharing the conversation. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Thanks for viewing our first Meadowbrook Memories video broadcast. And please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Would like all those who have given us tremendous support to make these conversations grow and grow, because these podcasts would not have been possible without the love and support you have given. These stories are like the birds from the title of my book, Starling Surprise, where a small unknown school nestled between Red Hills and Manningsville created familial bonds that produced a golden era in the 1980s. 40 years later, those same inspirational connections are creating conversations that are having an impact beyond the size of our small community. Keep viewing. Reach out to join the conversation by emailing us at meadowbrookmemories@gmail.com and support the show by purchasing my book, The Starling Surprise, How Meadowbrook High School won 7 trophies in 4 years in Jamaica in the 1980s. A link to purchase the book will be found in the description page, and you can show your support for our show by purchasing one for a friend, a current student at Meadowbrook, or yourself. Thank you.